Well, it was quite an unpleasant, windy day, and I suddenly heard a lot of noise looking up at very large pieces of hail, and suddenly it all went dark, and everything seemed to be moving from right to left, and quite quickly it cleared, and then all of a sudden it went totally dark again, and I could see particles going from left to right, and that's when I realised it was a tornado.
It started with a very heavy hailstorm. There was quite large chunks of hail. In fact, the ranch ladder that I was standing beside started to bend inward, so I was leaning against it to try and protect it.
The door in the adjoining part of the room must have been hit by a branch. There was glass from one end of the room to the other.
It was all over in a matter of moments. When it all died down, we started to look around at all the stuff that had been damaged. My name's Chris, and this shed that we're looking at now is one my great-grandfather built in the early part of last century. It was originally built as a flax mill. Up until about the early 1930s it served as a flax mill. This mill was where they used to process all the flax. They used to cart it from even way down near Pycock up to here on big drays, horse-drawn drays, and they'd process it here and dry the fibre out on the paddocks and then bale it up and send it off.
And what did they use the flax for?
So that time of the century it was a lot used in sails and ropes on ships.
Well, it's a little batch which is right on the top of a nice round green hill, and was perched right on the top. You can see it from State Highway 1. I think you can almost see it from Te Horo. You can see it from a long way away. It's only 2 rooms, a little kitchen cum living room and a bedroom with a bathroom between the two, but it's a nice little batch which was very derelict by this time.
And what happened on the day of the twister?
Well, it already had a bit of a hole in one wall, which had happened when a bull was leaning on it and scratching himself. So therefore it was getting more derelict by the day after that. And the tornado must have just got inside. It could have broken the windows for all I know, but the water tank from outside. It was originally a container which I think in the maybe late 19th century or early 20th they used them to transport crockery out by sea from England, from the old country, and people reused them as water tanks. It was quite common apparently. I think it was 4 feet by 4 feet by 4 feet. Yeah. So it was a very heavy plate metal.
And they would just seal the crockery in there?
I gather so, but it was exactly like the one in the dog cartoon, and we did plan to use it for storing water but hadn't done so.
We were making a concreting for Bran. Bran was standing where we are here, and we had the concrete mixer, and I was behind because I was filling the concrete mixer, and suddenly we had that hail coming down. Then we went and checked it. They were quite big, about half an inch. They were really big. And then went all quiet, and suddenly the lights start to flicker. Then Brian said to me, you better go and turn the lights off. Then I walked down there because the switch is over there. Mm-hmm. And I walked back, and then suddenly crash. And I couldn't see Brian because he was between the main trunk and the big branch. And I thought, oh, he's gone. And next thing, I can't see him appearing through the small branches. and it just got hit just slightly by a tiny little, a thing like that, but when it comes down fast.
And he was telling me the other day that he was actually quite close to being squashed. He just moved around at that moment.
Yeah. Oh, yes. It was just so sudden, and I thought it was gone. And I tell you what, that went far. Oh, I thought it was smashed. Squashed. Oh, we were lucky.
The shed was part of the farm that my ancestors used to have. It was a wool shed, a shearing shed. I remember as a little boy going down there when they were shearing sheep. But over the course of time, the farm got split up amongst various family members, and some of them got sold, and this one has been.
But when the tornado came through, it basically flattened it completely. There's nothing really left except debris. And what I would like to do is to not throw that, the metal and the wood away, but to create something, maybe a sculpture from it.
There was a belt of these big pine trees. They're very big old pine trees. And I read in a book, an AA book of trees in New Zealand, that this particular tree is photographed in this book, and it says that it was planted as a shelter belt for wee Parata's orchard. And it was planted in about the time of the Tarawera eruption, which I'm not sure, I think it was 1886 or something like that. But that tree, there are several of them on this property, but they're getting quite old and breaking, brittle now. Well, it was a new hybrid poplar at the time in 1966 or 67, when my dad was always studying trees, and he thought it was a good idea to have trees in amongst pasture to give the animals shelter and to bring up nutrients from below. And he chose those ones, and it was about 100 or so, I think, that he got, and we helped him plant them in 1966 or 67. And since then, he was advised by MAF, or Ministry of Agriculture at the time probably, to choose something which could be used for matchwood, because Bryant and May made matches in New Zealand in those days, and they were going to need a source of suitable timber, and the straight-grained light wood would have been ideal. But then they left, and so we didn't know what to do with the poplars, and they just stayed there. And they were getting quite old again, like the batch. They were getting old and shedding branches, sometimes falling over.